the impact so far of the lingering trade war on American businesses in the Philippines. With us now for more for our weekly segment Outside Looking In, John Forbes, the Senior Advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce of Philippines. Good to have you back on, John. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Cathy.
Yeah, you know,
how are
much
you?
has
Nice
been
to be back
said
on
about
your...
the Philippines being relatively insulated from the trade war, but is it really? I mean, what are you seeing from your chamber members, American firms doing business here in the Philippines?
Well, everyone's just like the rest of the world is, but it's had so far very little impact on the Philippines.
Yeah, but there is realignment of the supply chain going on among manufacturers out there as they relocate outside of China. Are you seeing any of those realignments benefiting the Philippines? I mean, what part of the supply chain are we capturing in this realignment, or are we not capturing any at all?
I don't think we're capturing yet. I just checked yesterday, for example, on garment exports for the country for the first quarter of 2019, and there's really been no increase. You would assume that since China makes 34% of the exports of garments globally, that some of that would get relocated here. But there's no sign of that yet. And you can't tell on electronics yet. China does export a lot of electronic.
You said not yet. Do you think that there might be a chance that the garments manufacturers would come to the Philippines?
The costs, if you look at the Nike website, last time it had 390,000 Vietnamese working for Nike, and in 90 factories, and zero here. So they're more cost competitive, their labor policies are more flexible, their holidays are fewer, their minimum wage is lower, they subsidize electricity. Tax incentives about the same between the two countries for that kind of work in industrial estates, but the costs are cutthroat in garments, and so it's not likely that they're going to come here in that sector.
So the Philippines' domestic economy is looking well supported by local consumption, falling interest rates, and an infrastructure bill. How's the health of the domestic economy holding up against the tariffs wars overseas?
Oh, I think, well, of course, are weakened, but you know, Secretary of Finance just spoke to. This is a slower start in the first quarter is going to pick up in the second quarter. Domestic economy, exports are still that is going to continue. The war situation with respect to China, what the United States is doing is not yet on all China. Is that he will have in July able to resume when he meets with Xi Jinping on the 20th of this month in Osaka, the G20 meeting.
John, we'll try to get back to you as we try to reestablish a better connection. John Forbes there of the AmCham in Makati, the U.S.-China trade. We bring back John Forbes, Senior Advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce Philippines. Good to have you back on, John.
Okay, good to be back on, Cathy.
Yeah, you know, the American Chamber's created a so-called infrastructure trackers. As you can see on your screen, we have that airport tracker. What are they for, and what do they mean?
Well, we put this up not just for the American Chamber, but the Joint Foreign Chambers as a whole on the AmCham website. And what we're trying to do is basically track about 125 projects of between 4 and 5 million trillion pesos in expenditures. And it has 8 different infrastructure subgroups. So the first one is airports, and there's one on broadband, bridges, and power, and rail, and road, and seaports, and water, as well as policies, either general or specific to a sector, about 20 policies. We also show the World Economic Forum competitiveness rankings, and we have a list of all 75 of the infrastructure flagship projects, although we actually cover about 44 of the projects in our own tracker. So we're following this because, as you know, the Philippines has a deficit in infrastructure, and particularly in the current administration with the Build the Vote program and with increasing spending currently at 5% of GDP, but moving up to 7% of GDP, which by the time it gets up to 7% will actually be $2 trillion a year spent just on infrastructure. So this is extremely important to our members. It's extremely important to the efficiency of the economy in the future and to even raising GDP growth.
Showing now the trackers that you have, especially on the airports under construction, are they on time or lagging? What are the trackers showing?
Well, the tracker, we're using a color. Green means it's completed. So Mactan has a new terminal. Puerto Princesa has a modernized airport and terminal. So they turn green at that point. Actually, the very first on that list that you're showing there is a core air traffic control system that is out at Naiya that enables the Philippine government to be aware of all traffic flying across the entire country at any one time. Now I see you put up the map, and the map shows the location of these projects. The most important one, I think, is the Naiya project, which is moving towards an approval by the NEDA for a consortium in a unsolicited proposal from the private sector to take over the operation. And that's expected to go to the Swiss Challenge later this year.
All right. Well, I'm hoping we can see more of those greens on your tracker. Do keep us up to speed, John. Thank you so much for joining us. John Forbes of the American Chamber of Commerce, Philippines. Sketching that recap of today's